Hi, my name is Lena. Welcome to my channel, and let's talk about my plans for 2019. This time, I just want you to show you the books that I absolutely want to read in 2019. Last year, I said that I wanted to be 2018 to be a year of Alexander the Great, the year when I want to read a lot of books about Alexander the Great, fiction and non-fiction. I also said that I wanted to read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, classic sci-fi, contemporary sci-fi, good sci-fi, Russian sci-fi, and English and American sci-fi. I felt in everything. Concerning Alexander the Great, I read a fiction and a non-fiction. A fiction was absolutely great. It was The Fire from Heaven by Marie Renault, and I absolutely love this book. It has been a lot of time, a long time since I enjoyed a book that much, but it has probably something to do with the fact that I love books about coming of age, and this book was a coming of age of Alexander the Great, and the story how this very difficult relationship between his mother and his father, and the way they tried to pull Alexander to their side, how it shaped and formed him in some ways. So why Alexander the Great became Alexander the Great, something like that. It was a very interesting book. And if it hadn't been for To the Librarian and Mark Richardson, I wouldn't have read a single sci-fi book in 2018. But I read, with To the Librarian, I read Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I enjoyed it very much. And with Mark Richardson, we read the third book of The Dragon Riders of Pern series, White Dragon by Anne McCaffrey. So basically, I failed at both my goals for 2018, and this time I decided not to restrict myself that. And the reason why I failed is because Steve Donoghue started his Sunday read-alongs, and I finally read Iliad and Odyssey, and I became very fascinated with the Trojan war mythology, and it kind of sort of led me aside from my goals. So this time in 2019, I absolutely want to continue with the Trojan mythology, and for this I want to read the ancient Greek plays by Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. And I believe it's all that survived, all that came to us. And although they do look chunky, they are poetry. They are basically plays in form of poetry. They are rather short. And one of the perks, apart from the fact that you read something that generation and generations of people read before you, like Alexander Pushkin, he definitely read Iliad. I'm not sure whether she read it in Greek or it was translated into Latin. I'm not sure, but he definitely read this one. So apart from this, this fact, they're quite short and they make wonders for your final count for the year in books, thanks to the fact that I read about 13 Shakespearean play, and some of the plays by Euripides and Sophocles and Aeschylus. I believe I read some Aeschylus. So because of that, and because of some things that like Song of Roland, this year I read about 65 books. Okay, I also want to read Aeneid by Virgil in 2019. Reading Don Quixote, I kind of became interested in chivalric romances, and I have listened to the version by Sir Knowledge. Sorry guys, I'm going to talk to you about these chivalric romances. So I listened to a later version of chivalric romances of the Arthurian cycle. I will totally butcher the name. I don't remember the name exactly, but I think it probably was Sir James Knowledge, and he said that his Arthurian legends, they were abridged legends written down by Sir Mallory, and some of the works by Monmouth. Sorry guys, I should have prepared better, but it's kind of on the spot. I decided to talk about it, so I got interested in the chivalric romances, and I started reading Chrétien de Troyes, and this is his two romances. One of them, Eric and Aeneid, and the second one is Cleges. And I have listened to his Lancelot the Knight of the Cart. But I have to say that I prefer his writing in a poetry form, because this way it's much more interesting, much more enjoyable, because Lancelot the Knight of the Cart, it was in prose. And apart from the ideas, the new and different ideas it contains, it's quite a simple story, and I believe I would have enjoyed it more if it would have been in verse. So I want to read a bit of chivalric romances, and I absolutely want to read, sorry guys, Orlando Furioso by Ludovico Ariosto in 2019, somewhere in March. I also want to read this book by Marie Renault, The Nature of Alexander, her non-fiction. I believe we also have a body read planned with Old Blues chapters and verse of second fiction, historical fiction of Alexander the Great, the second book of the trilogy by Marie Renault, which is called A Persian Boy, I believe. Yes, A Persian Boy. And I'm not going to show you all the books for all the body reads I have planned for 2019. Also, I plan to take part in ShakeTube 2019. I hope this is going to be a ShakeTube 2019, and also in Much Mystery Madness of 2019 and Cloak and Dagger Christmas of 2019. So I'm going to read some of the mystery stories. I also want to read 2 books, 2 non-fiction books, and I am not sure about them. I'm not sure whether I'm going to make it, whether I will be able to make it. First one is The Landmark of Arrian, the campaigns of Alexander. I want to start with it because I kind of sort of know the material a bit. And the campaign of Alexander was the nonfiction I read in 2018. And this time I hope I will get more out of it, with all the explanation, with all the additional notes, with all the photographs and footnotes and maps and photographs of the terrain, how it looks now. And maps. It looks such a chunk of, and it's definitely a read at home book. So I'm not sure how much time I will be able to oh my god, to invest in it. It's probably going to be all year round read book. Sorry guys. I'm going to tell you about one buddy read with Lukash from Totally Pretentious. We are going to read Herodotus, The Landmark of Herodotus, in summer. We plan to take 2 months for it. And this time, again, I'm hoping that all the footnotes, all the additional information will help me to read it. I tried to read Herodotus. And Steve Donahue was right. It's written in a very simple language, as though a friend tells you a story about your neighbors, but you have got to know your neighbors, and I don't. So it might be interesting, it might be taught in a very simple, comprehensive way, but I don't know these historical tribes, historical nations, people. I don't know them. So I'm hoping that this edition will help me to read Herodotus. I also have some books by contemporary Russian writers. Books I showed you in my Black Friday book haul. Zuleikha by Guzel Yakhina, the book that won Big Book Literary Award. I hope it's going to be much easier for me to read because it's in my native language, in my mother tongue. And those are trilogy by Eugene Vodolazkin. And those are books that I absolutely want to read in 2019. Otherwise, apart from these books and apart from my buddy reads, I'd like to keep my options open to see what everybody around me is going to read, to see what discoveries I will make in 2019. And by the way, I watched Celia's video, her video about her plans for 2019, and she was talking about 2 types of readers. One were list readers, the ones who make lists of all the books they want to read in 2019, for example, or a TBR for every month and stick to this TBR. And squirrel readers, the readers who read what they want to read at this particular moment, what they feel like reading right now. And I think I'm actually a monkey reader. Because I have all these wonderful books to read, I might start them and then I watch what everybody else is reading, and I want to read what everybody else is reading. And sometimes I put on hold the books I started, and they stay on hold indefinitely. For example, on my Goodreads page, I cleared it a bit. O Pioneers by Villa were there in currently reading for a year, I believe, and I want to read this book, but I haven't even started it yet. So I put it back on the shelf to read. A sci-fi book that I got for free, I believe, Behemoth. I put it back to read because I never even finished the first chapter. It might be good, I don't know. It's the first book in the series, but I haven't even finished the first chapter. And where writing style is concerned, it was nothing to write home about. So I cannot judge this book. I haven't even read past the first chapter. So I put it back into read pile. And I also have War and Peace there. And I believe it probably have been there for 2 years. Some years back, the skeptical reader made a read-along out of the War and Peace. I believe they took 2 months to read it, and I have finished the first volume. But then I started an intense course in French grammar, and it was an intense course. Although I was on my vacation, I was daily doing my homework. I was doing it from the early morning and until 6 p.m. Of course, I stopped for lunch and breakfast and dishwashing duty, but I didn't have that much time to read, and I failed to even start the second volume, although I really enjoyed the first one. I am waiting for Steve Donahue to make a Sunday read-along out of it. I think he hinted that much, that he was going to read The War and Peace with us. And that's when I will finally be able to finish the second volume, or maybe reread the first and reread the second, because I read it at school, but I was just a kid at school. So it's due for a read. So this is a drawback of being a monkey reader, that you got so excited about everybody else's reading lists and TBRs that you kind of stop reading your own books. So that's why I showed you just this staple of my 2019 TBR, and so I would be able to read something what I will be feeling like reading. Sorry guys. Also about Goodreads, I have a very strange feeling. I watched my read shelf and I have noticed the mysteries that I gave 5 stars, 4 stars, because I really enjoyed them. I love mysteries, And then I noticed Moby Dick, 3 stars. Jane Eyre, 3 stars. It's very strange. When I read books, I think I rate them in the genre. Like when I'm reading the detective stories, I gave 5 stars the mysteries I liked the most, I enjoyed the most, that were written better than others. But when I read classics, I'm not such a well-read reader, such a knowledgeable reader, such a connoisseur of writing styles. So I rate books according to how much I enjoyed them. And I rate classics sometimes, give 3 stars to classics, not because the books were written badly, were not very well written, like Jane Eyre. I rated it 3 stars because I didn't like Jane Eyre and because I didn't like the positions women at the time were put in, the position, the situation, all these limitations. I didn't like the time, I didn't like Jane Eyre, I didn't like Rochester, so it got 3 stars. But Donna Leon's second detective story, Death in a Strange Country, got 5 stars, and I believe the second book in the Notebooks of Pliny, the Younger series, got 5 stars. So sorry about that, guys. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and happy reading.